Hello, good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. Welcome back again in another podcast. And as you know, this podcast is to help you to improve your pronunciation of English. I don't care about grammar, but I love it. I don't care about reading, but it's a necessity. So it's a combination of a few things that I'm presenting to you is for the sake of recalibrating your level of English. And sometimes you notice that I use certain words in certain contexts. And that is for the purpose of introducing these words to you. As you know, these words are intentionally presented to you here in this podcast because I want you to use them to see how they perform and behave in the ecosystem of a conversation, in the ecosystem of speaking, in the ecosystem of language. And I want you to embrace it, and I want you to embrace them. I want you to look at them and how they are pronounced, whether these words are in the text that you see now, or they're words that I'm saying in parallel to the text that we are reading. The whole purpose is very simple. We need to lift up our level. We need to enhance our level of English. We need to go over the ordeal of pronunciation in English, the ordeal of pronunciation in Iraq and Middle East in general. So Joanna walked all the way to the capital city. Now, the word capital is a very interesting word. It means عاصمة, it means حرف كبير, it means رأس مال, it means يستثمر. It has so many variations depending on the context. If you're in Wall Street capital, the meaning is completely different. But you are not in Wall Street. You are in my podcast. And the interesting thing about this podcast is if you do not see any improvement in reading, you'll definitely see some review of common words that we have seen in our life that we think that they are pronounced that way, but they are certainly different in pronunciation, or at least from the perspective of native speakers, because native speakers do not say them in this way or that way. They tend to say them in a specific way within the court of language where your ball should be, thrown to certain players, but this ball should not cross the line of being a non-native variation of pronunciation. Aside from all of that language jargon, let's get back here. So Joanna walked all the way. Now, you notice here, very beautiful thing, that the speaker, the writer says all the way. Now, the expression all the way is an emphasis to the fact that Joanna walked the way to the capital, but he's adding a bit of stress by describing the process of her walk. And this is very normal in English when we want to express something, but we express the process of that thing. For example, we say, the car went into the tunnel, or he went onto the room. We are just describing the process. I went to Baghdad. I arrived in Baghdad. So these kind of prepositions are very specifically used in this kind of context to indicate a specific way of behavior that the doer or the agent is doing regarding the verb. And I'm saying the word the doer or the agent because these are categorically grammatical terms we use in English when we teach grammar in the advanced level for university students or for people who are really interested into the intricacies of semantics of English. Well, that got me into thinking, probably in the future, should you be interested, of course, we sever part of the podcast that we do here to introduce basic concepts about pragmatics, semantics, syntax, and phonetics and phonology. These are what they call the onion of the layers of linguistics, or modern linguistics, language and linguistics. She pushed a wooden cart. Now look here, the word wood is simply خشب, but the word wooden, and it's pronounced wooden, is an adjective to describe cart. And cart is very simple. It's araba majrura. So the cart that sometimes we use when we go shopping. If you're shopping in Baghdad and Al-Warda or Wafar or any one of the big supermarkets, and do they still call them supermarkets? I'm not sure if they just call them supermarkets or anything else. But these are called carts. And the sound, look at it. It's cart. It's not cart. It's cart. And the sound is very distinctive to English. It's so marginalized. It's so mispronounced and by so many native speakers of Arabic. Full of stone fruit. Full of. Now, I'm not stressing the word of, I'm stressing the word full. I'm not stressing the word full, I'm stressing the word full. And you notice sometimes when people speak and the flow of speech or the cadence is very fast, they tend to switch from a voiced the in of to voiceless fa. So you may notice people saying, for example, cart full of stone. In my interpretation, there are two ways for that, or there are two interpretations for this scenario. The first one is the speed makes people reduce the intensity of vibration in vocal cords on the expense of prepositions, because they are, what do we call them? We have content words and we have grammatical words or function words. So of is not a content word per se. It's just a grammatical word. And also, stone is a noun. It carries much, much more meaning than the word of. And for that reason, we tend to de-stress of, sometimes we say of, to give more emphasis to stone fruit. She carried with her. She carried, not carried. Carried. She carried with her. Hamalat. She carried with her. A beautiful wooden market stall. Look here, the word stall is a noun, okay? But everything that comes before it is an adjective, even though it's a noun, but it's a noun. Now, I want you to pay attention to this. It's a noun by form, but it's an adjective by function. This is very common in English that we use nouns sometimes in a function of adjectives to describe other nouns at the end of the continuum. So the stall had belonged to her. The stall had belonged to her mother, to to her mother. And before that to Joanna's grandmother. Now, here, honestly, when we talk about long words, part of the sounds in these words get dropped because of economy of English as a typical language in the world where people try to speak less to mean more. And because sometimes in English that the words, like if you notice here that the D is optional. So you can say grandmother or you can say grandmother. You can say the D and you don't have to say the D. It depends. But most of occasions, most of situations, people don't use to say the D just because it's hard to say it. It's a plosive stop sound. I'm sorry, it's not a plosive. It's a stop sound. So the air gets compressed and then released. And part of the typical pattern of English speech is to reduce the stops, at least while you're talking, and marginalize the stops on auxiliary verbs to give more weight and emphasis to the content words. Now, part of what I'm talking about here right now might sound a bit weird, but for experts, you know what I'm talking about, especially students and professionals working in the field of English. On this toll, look, there's something that happened here that bears your attention. I did not say on this stall. I said on this toll. On this toll. On this toll. So what kind of phenomenon do we have here? What is this? Is it assimilation? Is it deletion? Is it elision? I'm asking you. Maybe you can leave me a comment where you can say, well, Waleed, this is what happened here. And this is very typical of the spoken English where two similar consonants meeting at the end of a word and the beginning of a new word, so they get smushed together. They get fused together to reduce the amount of stops in the middle of the speech. So on this stop, she would sell. Look, she would sell. I'm not saying she would sell. I can say that. But I'm not saying it because I'm just giving more weight to sell her fruit. So I'm specifically looking at sell as fruit as two basic salient words that I want to emphasize more over would and her, because would is a modal auxiliary verb and her is a possessive adjective. So to sell her fruit. To sell her fruit. These kind of like, I tend to say her is a possessive adjective. And it's kind of like a content word, but it's a function word. Anyway, both. When she finally arrived at the city, she was very tired. She was very tired. So tired. Look, this is very interesting topic to talk about. This is an adjective, even though it ends in ed, but it's an adjective. Now, we have certain kind of adjectives that end in ing and end in ed. For example, tired. We have tiring. We have bored, we have boring, we have interested, and also we have interesting. So these kind of adjectives have certain very interesting feature I love to talk about. And this feature is that who's the doer and who's the doey? Doer and doey. Well, maybe it's a new word for you. Doey, D-O-E-E. It's written like that. Interesting. It's not in the dictionary. However, I promise you, it's a word in English. Dewy. Not does. Dewy. This is the word. Dewy. Dewy. Oh, maybe you can Google it. It's showing here that it's not available, but I guarantee you it's there. Maybe it's just the dictionary is not updated, or it's just lacking enough vocabulary that are common. These words, if the word, I hate to talk about it from a grammatical point of view, but if they end in ing, they are the cause of the feeling. If they end in ed, they are the recipients of the feeling. So if I'm saying I'm interesting person, I'm causing people to feel interested, and they are receiving the action or the feeling or whatever kind of energy I'm vibing to them. And if they are tired, they're tired because of me, they are tired because of work, they're tired because of so many circumstantial things that might help to get them to the feeling of tiredness. After months of on the road, after months, I, as a non-native EFL speaker of English, I don't tend to say th at all because I hate it. I hate it in words like clothes. So I say clothes. Where are my clothes? Well, I tend not to say the th, especially in words like months and clothes. So months are 12, and my clothes are here. But the stone fruit, let me rewind here. The word months, this th causes a bit of, well, it's present there. It's because it's one of the key constituents of the word month and months. It's a necessity to be there to refer to the 12 months. And if it's not available, then it might misguide people to think of it as a moth, athe, or something else. So there is a syntactic necessity. There's a rhetorical necessity for the presence of th here. Now, why do we not say it? Because it's hard to say it when you're speaking English. English is like a hybrid car. It works by the concept of economy. So to reduce the amount of fuel spent and to drive extra mileage, that's pretty much English. That we want to say less but mean more with the same words. So you tend to see, like, for example, phrasal verbs used so much in English because they're economical, they are common, they're common sense. Everyone knows them. And they are less distancing people when they talk to each other. So if I say, may I help you get to know this person? So to get to know is better than may I introduce this person to you. So the word introduce and get to know right now. So these kind of phrasal verbs tend to use the hybrid model of language, where communication happens to be easier and friendlier in English conversational style than just resorting to using very academic words that distance people, show more respect, formality. But who likes respect and formality nowadays? Everybody wants to be friendly, even if that implies using some taboo / jargon / slang / vulgarity to some extent. On the road. But the stone fruit, we're almost ripe. We're almost ripe. Almost ripe. Almost ripe. Look, we're almost ripe. Probably, if a native speaker is in my shoes right now, they would say it differently. Because every person speaks with very distinctive, to the genetic level, kind of accent or pronunciation. It's like the iris of the eye. It's like the fingerprints of the hand. Everyone speaks differently. So we need to advocate for the fact that nobody speaks the same. Everybody speaks differently. And this speech difference or variation doesn't mean that I'm right and you're wrong. Maybe if you dial back 1 year ago, or 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, or 6 years ago, or 7 years ago, and you watch the videos on my channel, you would see so many pronunciation problems. I call them problems because they are really problems on my channel. And that's because of the growth trajectory that I had over the process of developing myself in continuum, or the continuum of developing myself over the span of the 6 to 7 years of video creation and content creation for this channel. Every video that I created comes with different package of experiences and ideas. Now, it got me thinking about the things that I've posted before and whether I have to delete them because they have some misinformation or misguided instruction to students. I keep them because I want to see where I came from. And I keep them to evidence for the new generation of video creators that nobody hits the jackpot of knowledge without going through the process of challenges and failures, consecutive failures, to get that to that satisfactory level of, oh, I got to that point. And then you raise your head and you look on the thousands of miles that you have to move into new territories of language. Language is like, what do we call it? A laboratory where you have different experimentation every day, and you just try your best to be ready to get as much as language contamination, where you bombard yourself with so much auditory trash to some extent by listening to songs, to noise. Language is a noise, but it's a very unique kind of noise that is divine creation, where it lets people cry, it lets people laugh, it lets people think sanely, it lets people become philosophers, linguisticians, scientists, and content creators. To the extent that people start selling words by becoming either professors or, what do we call them? Motivational speakers. But they wouldn't have had that kind of status without going through so many challenges in their lives. They got to a very psychological debilitating point of depression or drug addiction or just suicidal thoughts going through their minds every second. And then there was a deciding factor on whether they stay or surrender and give in, or they make something different that transforms their life. And this is pretty much the case of many of the successful people out there. Going back to the passage that I'm reading now, it's not about the passage, and I have said that a million times. It's about the shared conversation between me and you. It's about listening to me, throwing on the table, hit the jackpot, or any other idiomatic / phrasal / academic / common expression that I am saying here is for the advantage of enriching your experience of English by listening more and trying to be attached to the reading, whether through this book, through this channel, or through any kind of resource that you use. You guys are very lucky because you're very resourceful people. You have laptops, you have cell phones, you have the best internet in the world. We are at least at the same kind of level, on the same bar with people in the United States or in Europe in terms of the internet accessibility. You can pay a good amount of money to get the best bandwidth and start video content creation. This is a very good chance or opportunity to call for those teachers who have so much wealth in language, but they just reserve it for themselves. Don't try to be knowledge stingy. Come on. You need to share your thoughts. Start with something very simple. Try to upload your content on YouTube and just leave it for yourself to macerate there. To macerate there. And then try to share it with your friends. Try to consult with me. I can give you so much feedback, actually, over the trajectory of my work on this channel. You can calibrate it to become conducive to being learnable or teachable to those people or to those audience. It's very interesting, and it's very important point that I shall call and encourage you for. Just don't reserve the knowledge for yourself. Are you a sharer or a reservoir of knowledge? People evolve and develop by sharing, because a human being is a social person. And if you don't share, if you just reserve it for yourself, I mean, come on, we have ChatGPT, we can access any kind of information that we need. The point is very simple here, is to share your knowledge to gain more knowledge. What is shared is gained. And there's nothing bad about sharing your knowledge to enrich yourself, to get in touch with people. This lesson is to help you galvanize your skills in English, to recalibrate your pronunciation. Not to say I'm a native speaker by any means, but this is to encourage you to become a very professional English speaker to a very satisfactory point, whether to pass a benchmark test like IELTS or TOEFL or any one of the common tests nowadays available, or to apply for admission at university. Anyways, let's stop here because people don't like our long lessons that I promise I will make them longer, because I don't believe in reels / stories / short TikToky videos. If you want to learn English, you have to go the extra mile. You have to go through the treacherous road, mountainous road of hiking through language to explore the topography of it. The geography of English doesn't come from watching short, silly, stupid TikTok / Instagram stories of people just posting a word for like 15 seconds. I know I'm blamed to do that, but just to attract you into my network of audience so I can feed you the real juice of language. Thank you very much. I hope that this noble lesson that I'm presenting to you is to help you benefit from English pronunciation in the early morning if you wake up or before going to sleep, and then build on it something useful. If you're a teacher, try to document your work and publish it to yourself, to share it with your friends, to give you feedback, try to be open-minded, and then build on that a career of English teaching, methodology, or channel to help people, inspire people to speak a second or third or fourth language, or to become a polyglot. Have a wonderful day or night. مدرب اللغة وليد خالد.